Hey, in this lesson, we're going to be setting up Node, so showing you how to access Node, so going over to the Node website, which is node.js.org, and then how to download, install, and set up Node so you can code alongside the upcoming lessons. Also going to be going over the editor that we are using, so using the Visual Studio Code, and the location of that is code.visualstudio.com, and as well the Node package manager, so that's available at npmjs.com, and how to access your Node application and run Node with the terminal. I'm going to be on a Mac, so I'm using the Mac terminal, but as well for Windows machines, there is a terminal available. And then also confirming that you do have Node installed, checking the version of Node, and also the Node package manager version. So all of that is coming up in this lesson. Hey, in this lesson, we're going to be setting up Node, installing it into our systems, and then also setting up the editor so that we can get coding in the next lesson. So the main website for Node is at node.js.org, and you can go over to the downloads area and select your platform to download Node on. So if you're on a Mac, Windows, and also there's the source code for Node, there's different versions. So recommended is to go and download the latest version of Node, install it, and run through the setup. So I'm just doing it on a Mac. It's doing the install, it's doing the download of the latest package, and then when you open it up, you can do an install on your system. There's also the Node package manager, which we're going to look at as well. And this now by default gets also installed with Node. So you're going to see that the package of Node that I just selected to download is going to install the current version of Node, and it's also going to install the package manager. So you can also get the package manager separately. And I'm just entering in my password there. So the package manager, and we're going to be talking a lot more about this in the upcoming lessons. So there's a website, npmjs.com. So that's where you can go and you can find out more about the available Node packages that you could download and that you can make use of within your code. Once it's installed, you can confirm the installation within your terminal. So on a Mac, you can press Command space, and the Command space will open up Spotlight. The Spotlight search, and you can just type in the terminal into the search, and that will pop up your terminal option. On a Windows machine, you can right-click Start and type in Command Prompt or CMD, and that will open up the command terminal for you. And from there, you can access and you can run the node as well as check the version of the node. So this is the Mac terminal. You open the terminal, you can type in node-v, and what that will do is that will let you know which version of Node is installed. So if you do not have Node installed, if there was some kind of error with your Node installation, you're not going to get anything returned back. So open up the terminal, whether you're on a Mac, you can use just the Spotlight with the command space to open up terminal, and on the Windows machine you can type CMD or command prompt after opening the start menu, and that will open up the command prompt for the terminal. Also for Windows, you can do an install and setup of the Windows terminal, so that's available over at Windows, and as long as you've got a Windows machine you can install this as a free install. So they've got some more information at the Microsoft.com for the Windows terminal, and you can get it and do an install there as well to get a terminal application to run on your Windows machine. And do the same thing where you can type in the node-v and just ensure that Node is installed. There's also the npm-v, and that will check to make sure that the Node package manager is also installed, and which it should be if you're getting one of the latest versions of Node. So once you've confirmed you do have Node installed, and that's the node-v, npm-v, that's just the version that's installed on your computer, you can open up your editor. The editor that I'm going to be using in the upcoming lessons is the Visual Studio Code, which is available at code.visualstudio.com. So this is an open source editor. It's got a lot of really good features, as well as it also has a terminal built in. So we're going to be making use of that in the upcoming lessons. And by all means, you are welcome to use whatever editor that you're most comfortable with. If you do want to use the same one that I'm going to be using, I am going to be using Visual Studio. To do an install of the editor, go over to code node.visualstudio.com, and you are able to use whatever editor that you want to use, but I am going to be using the Visual Studio Code. So if you want to use the same one that I'm using, this is the one that I'm going to be using in the course. And it does have terminal access, so that's one of the benefits of Visual Studio Code. So go over to where you can download and select the version for your platform. So on a Mac OS, Windows, and whatever version of Windows, and then the Linux version. And then select the download, and it will start downloading to your system. Once you finish downloading, then you can open up the zipped file and run through the install onto your computer. And you can just go with the defaults for the install. And I'll do a quick walkthrough of this install. It's going to be the same for either on a Windows machine or on a Mac. So once it's downloaded, select to unzip the zip file and then run through the install. So on a Windows machine, you can just execute it as the administrator to install it on your system. On a Mac, you can drag over the file and open it up. So open up the app file. Select the open option, and that's going to open up the Visual Studio Code on your system. They also have some information over at the website on how to get started with Visual Studio Code. And we are going to be writing Node. So there is a section here within the overview on the left-hand side, how to get started with Node. And they also do provide a quick Node tutorial, how to navigate on your terminal once you have the Visual Studio installed and how to run your Node applications. So once you've installed the Visual Studio Code, you're going to be presented, and you open it up, you're going to be presented with a welcome screen. So it gives you some quick details on how to use the tools, languages, keyboard settings, color themes. So you can customize the look and feel of your editor, as well as you can create a new file or open a folder. So I usually will just go to the folder that I'm using, or I'll create a brand new file, or I'll create a brand new folder and then a file within it. So when you create a brand new file, you do have options at the top with terminal, and I am going to be increasing the font size so that's easier to read within the course. But of course, you are welcome to keep the font size at a comfortable size as you're coding your applications. So it's created a new, and you can also close the welcome screen. And also that can set it to show that welcome screen every time, or you can just remove the welcome screen from showing up. So there's a few different options to customize it. Within the editor itself, there are options under preferences. So if you go to the top menu under code preferences, there's a number of extensions that you can add in. There's settings, there's services, there's the keyboard shortcuts, color theme, so you can select different color themes, the icon theme. So there's a lot of options here that you can update. So if you open up the settings from the user settings, there's different font sizes that you can set, and as well, depending on the language that you're using, you can make some customizations. I'm going to be just using the default install of the Visual Studio Code. And it also does come with terminal, and that's also available at the top in the top navigation menu of the Visual Studio Code. By default, it's going to be running as plain text, and you can, and there is a Node package to install. So you can select that it's running on the JavaScript code. You can just click it and hide the status bar. So that will hide that status bar there at the bottom. And we're going to create a basic blank file, a JS file. So make sure that you do have a folder space that you can create the file on, and just do a new file. And then hit to save the file. It's going to save this file. And I'm going to call it app1.js. So we're just going to name it as a JavaScript file. And then we're going to be adding some coding coming up in the next lesson. With the Visual Studio, you can add also the folder to a workspace. That'll allow you to collect all of the files into the same folder directory and adding it into the workspace. So it's going to make it a lot easier to make selections of it. And of course, it's also a good way to keep all of your files organized within the same directory and folder. And if you go under View and hit the Show Sidebar, that's going to give you a listing within the main folder, all of the files that you have contained within that folder. So now let's open up the terminal within Visual Studio. So that's again up at the top tabs under terminal, and you've got a choice here of new terminal or split terminal. So just go ahead and click new terminal. That's going to open up the terminal directly within the editor. I'm going to close off and minimize the files as it's taking up some space there. This is the terminal that we have, and by default it's going to go into the folder that we've set up for the workspace. So again, here you can type in node-v that we opened up, and it's going to return back a version number for node and as well for npm. And just double check that it is installed and that you do have a version for each one of those. Now, in order to open the terminal, you can always go to terminal and hit new terminal. You can close the terminal. There's two options here to either to close it. You can close the panel, which is going to keep the terminal open. So if you do new terminal, then you're going to end up with bash 3, 4, 5, and so on. So if you do want to close them, then you can select the trash can. That's going to kill the active terminal instance. And then when you open up the new terminal, you're going to be starting at number 1. You can also flip through the different screens, and as well you can have split terminals, so you can have multiple terminals opened within the editor. So now that you're set up and ready to start coding, next lesson we're diving right in and we're going to start coding and writing some Node code.